Gonna do my best to make sure that doesn't fall, because it's standing on a tripod and 2 books, and I'm sitting on my bed, which I feel like I always like to film on my bed, because sometimes I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, I want to film a video, let me just film right now. And then I have the wobbliest setup on my bed. But also it's because my chair is it has laundry on it that I have to put away. I was supposed to put it away yesterday. Clearly I did not do that. So that's fun. But yes, so today, first of all, welcome back. Today's video, we are going to be talking about my 5 to 7 star book reads of the year. And I have read 20 books this year, which that was not my goal. My goal was to read 36 books, and I read 20. And that's mainly because I got a job, and when I got a job, I had no time to do anything fun. Not me about to cry. We will not discuss my disgust of a 9 to 5. Listen, I'm grateful that I make money, but then it's like, what is the purpose of me making money if I can't enjoy it? Like, what is the purpose? I don't have an apartment to pay rent. I mean, I have student loans I pay, so that's nice to have money to pay that off and to socialize. But then if I socialize too much, I'm not being a responsible adult. So there's that. We're doing great, guys. Anyway, so I didn't read as many books as I was supposed to, as my goal was. Do not have a crisis right now. You are filming a video. I'm fine, I promise. Anyway, I'm going to talk about my 5-star reads for the year, because I tried my best to make time for reading, and I was a bit bummed that I didn't get to read 36 books this year. But then I had to remember, girl, you had a full 9 to 5 job this year. Like, you didn't have the time to read as much as you first. I made the goal before I had a job, so I was anticipating myself to have more time. I was anticipating for me to be able to read 3 books a month, and if I had the time, I could. But because I didn't have the time, I did not read 3 books a month. So I read as much as I could, and that's okay. So I let that go, and then I just was reading just for fun. And I think I'm in a reading slump a little bit, because I this year also have been I've been putting a pause on a lot of book reads. Like, if I'm not in the mood to read a book, I will pause it. Or if like I'm reading a book that's really good but I just need a break because it's kind of a lot, I stop. Like, I was reading The Goldfinch a few months ago, and then I got to page 75, and I think I finished the first part, and it was like section 2. I closed the book and put it away, because I was like, I need a minute to like breathe, because I like, it was just such a sad beginning. And I was like the premise of it is ideally not the best, but like, it was just like, I was under the impression that like we weren't going to see what we saw, and then we saw what made the characters like sad upbringing. And I was like, I need a minute to just decompress and just think about life, because that was such a sad beginning. Like, oh my gosh, I was like, yo, like we got into details of what was happening and how it made the character feel, and we got to like love someone that was lost. And then like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, so I had to stop. Reading it. I was reading Babel. So far it is great. I have no complaints. It's a very academic book, and if you're reading it and you're understanding it, you feel like an intellectual who's very smart. But also, it's a heavy book that you need to take your time. Like, I can't just read through it in 2 days. I have to sit there and legit let myself read the book. And it was good. It's still good. I have yet to finish it though. And I was doing that with a lot of books. Like, if it was just really deep and like a little bit dark, I was like, okay, let me take a little break and read something else. Also, The Nightingale, I started reading it like a few days ago, and I started and then stopped, because I'm like, this is a book about war, and this is actually really sad. Hold on. And then I started reading Emma. I think I'm gonna make a book vlog for this book, because so far I'm hating the book. I watched the movie and I liked it. I thought it was a cute little movie, and I know Emma's a classic by Jane Austen. And reading this book reminds me why when I was in like high school and in college, why I hate, hate, hate. Main issue, hate. I am an English major who hated classics. I will say it, and I will stand on that. They are so boring. Oh my gosh, classics are like a lot of. Come in. Come in. What do you want? What do you want? I'm busy.
What are you doing?
Filming a video, and you just interrupted me. Knock, 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 knock. I thought it was Johnny.
Knock, 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 knock.
No, that's where he gets it from. You know, like knock on your forehead. Come in. What do you want?
Bothering me.
What do you mean what I'm bugging you? You knocking on my door like you some child. What do you want? I'm leaving all that in too. Anyway, I don't even know what I was talking about. Oh yes, I hate classics. And this book, mind you, I have the audiobook. And I am listening to the audiobook and reading the book at the same time. And I'm just like, wow. First of all, the character Emma, like in the movie, she was like cutesy and like I liked her. I hate her in the book. She is so annoying and obnoxious and just ridiculous. And also just like the way how they talk about, like, yes, this is like in like the 18th or 17th century, so it's like the way how they think about women is like, oh, women are only good for marriage, and like they're like, you know, whatever. And like Emma like feeds into it and also doesn't. She's like, oh, like women are worth more than this, but then at the same time she like feeds into what society says about women, are also being like, oh, but women can be intellectual too. But like, can they? Because you're an intellectual idiot. So like I don't know. Anyway, so I don't know if I want to keep reading that book right now. I was thinking about reading Abby Jimenez's just for the summer. I'm just scared because I read Part of Your World and Yours Truly, which are both in this list, and I cried in both of them. So I just was like, I didn't read just for the summer right after because I was like, I need to stop crying. I'm sick of crying. What do you want?
I'm like washing clothes and doing that. We don't do this again.
You do all that to sound like a machine? Are you kidding me? You did all that knocking.
What?
You know how to hook up the machine.
Can you do it for me? Jeez.
Here, take it.
Don't mess with the hair. I gotta take the stuff off first. This is what
The first book that I have on my list, I said I read 20 books, and I have 12 books on this list. So more than half the books I read this year were at least 5 stars. The lowest book I ranked was Once Upon a Broken Heart, which is a trilogy that's like a spin-off trilogy of the book Carnival or Caraval. I don't know how to pronounce, but have I read those books? No, but it's like in the same world as those books, and I rated that 3 star because I thought I thought that book was so mid, and it was like reminded me of the reason why I didn't like romance, because it just like the way how the character was, like, she was just so like whimsical and like an annoying way, not in the way of like, oh my goodness, she's just so happy. It was like she's just so stupid because she's just like obnoxiously like trying to fall in love with people that don't even love her, and it's just like, girl, like it was just like, it made her look pathetic, and it makes women look pathetic when they're trying to like fall in love and be in love. And like I get the reason why she wanted to fall in love is because she never had love in her life, so she is like yearning for it because she's never received it from her own parents, because the parents that like her mom died, and then like her dad married this like evil stepmother, and like the stepmother doesn't love her like that, and like the father like lost love for her, like limits the love that he has for her, So like she's looking for love because she doesn't get any, but it's just the way that she goes about it. It's just so sad and pathetic. Like the character's written very pathetic in the first book, and then towards the end, like the little mystery towards the end with Jax, like saved the book a little bit for me and made me want to read the other two books. Now, the reason why I introduced that book is because the first 5-star book of the year is The Battle of Never After, which is the second book in the series. So when I read the first book in the series, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I mind you, I already bought the trilogy. Like, I bought all 3 already. So I was like, okay, I have the other 2 books. I might as well read them. They're pretty covers. The first one sucked, but sometimes the first one can suck and the rest of the series can be better. Another example of that is the Inheritance Game series. Listen, the first book was mid. You can't, like, it was kind of mid. And the mystery towards the end kind of saved it. The rest of the series is good. Like, the second, the rest of the series is good. Like, I do like the rest of the Inheritance Game series. So now when all the books come out, I'm there. I'm buying them. So this was the same vibe. So The Battle of Ever After, I read this in the beginning of the year, so I cannot really remember what it was. I just remember reading this book and I was like, I'm trying to think about what I liked about this book. I kind of forgot the plot of it, but I just remember the romance between, what was her name? Evangeline, and Jax. I was eating it up. No crumbs left behind. Like the way, because like towards the end of the first book they were falling in love, and then she finds out, oh, that like he tricked her, and then she's like trying not to fall in love with him, but then she continues to fall in love with him even more in this book. And it's just the way how the romance is written and the mystery behind, I think it was like, I don't know what she was trying to he's trying to get her to do stuff, and like she kind of has to like align, like be an alliance with him. I'm legit forgetting what this book is about. Oh yeah, like there's like a new curse that they have to, like, that she has to figure out how to like dispel. I think it was like she was supposed to fall in love with the prince, and the prince got a spell put on him, and the only way for her to remove the spell was by working with Jax, and then she falls in love with him again. This book was really good, and I think I teared up. I don't know if I cried with this one, I don't remember, but I remember thoroughly enjoying this book, eating it up, and I was just like, ooh, this book is so good. Moving on. The next book in the series, well, the last book of the trilogy, A Curse for True Love. This book I gave a 5.5 stars. The way how Jax loves Evangeline, and it's just so like we bring back men who yearn. Like, I knew in the beginning of the series, I was like, I know these things. It's obvious that Evangeline and Jax were the romance that like we're supposed to be watching. Like, we're supposed to not want them together because Jax is like not the best character, but like you like him anyway because eventually she finds a way to like him. And I was like, I know Jax is not a good person, but I just feel the urge to like him anyway. And then in this book, he just like shows he's that guy that's like mean to everyone else but the person he likes, and it was showing in this one, showing so much in this one. I remember, I think there was a part in the book where I think whether he felt that he felt like Evangeline was gonna die, and the way he was like screaming, crying, sad that he thought he lost her, and then it turns out he didn't. I was like, yo, like I read this I think in a day. I think I read this in like I think maybe 2-3 days, and then I could not wait. I had to read the last one, and I ate it up. I just remember thoroughly. I want to reread this book again, which means I'll probably have to reread the trilogy, like the whole trilogy again. I genuinely want to reread this whole trilogy again just to be able to enjoy this book all over again, because I did forget a lot of what happens in this book. Like, these 2 books, as much as they were 5 stars and I absolutely love these books, I completely forgot the plots. Like, the way how I'm legit struggling to tell you what these books are even about shows you how forgetful they are. But when you read them and you're in the moment and you're infatuated with them, I was obsessed because like And these are also romantasy books because they're like heavy fantasy and like heavy romance. Like it's a heavy good mixture of both. And like I feel like the fantasy aspect saves the romance because the romance is good, but I feel like in the first book it was just so unfathomably disgusting. I wanted to puke. But these two, hello, these two save the series. I definitely want to reread these books again, probably get the audiobooks for them and then listen to the books and read them. I do not think I underlined anything. I don't see any annotations. Maybe the second time I read these books I might want to annotate them, but also they're just like such pretty covers. Like look at this. They're just such pretty covers on my shelf and I absolutely love those books. Okay. The next 5-star read. I also read a lot of romance books this year, which, am I in a relationship? No. Anyway, I read a lot of romance this year, which I'm like shocked at. This next book, If Only I Had Told Her. This is the sequel to the first book, If Only He Had Told, no. If Only I Had Told, I'll put it up on the screen, I forgot, but this is the sequel to that book. And mind you, the first book was written like I think in like 2013 2015. That book was written years ago, and then this just came out I think this year, if I'm not, yeah, it came out this year because I read it this year. Came out this year. When I tell you I couldn't stop sobbing, like this in 3 perspectives. It was with Finn, Jack, and Autumn. Autumn's perspective I was kind of like about towards the end. Like I mean her perspective is like sad because you know she finds out Finn dies and then she tried to herself, and then I should probably say there's gonna be spoilers. I'm going to be talking about because I can't like avoid. If you haven't read these books, I'm gonna talk about them in the sense of like I'm gonna say things anyway. Autumn's perspective was really good, but it was also like we read the first book from her perspective, so I'm like Finn and Jack's sobbing. I was sobbing. I remember reading the first like few pages and I was just tears. I had to stop. I had to keep stopping, putting the book down and just crying because I was just like, it was just like, because you know Finn's dead, and to find out that he died not because of the car crash, because he got out of the car thinking that he was gonna save Sylvie or Sylvia. Is her name Sylvia or Sylvie? Sylvie. Thinking that he's gonna save Sylvie, and he touches a puddle of water, and that puddle of water just so happens to have electrical cords already in it, and he fried himself. If he didn't get out the car, he would be alive. And that's the part that eats me up alive, and that made me sob. I'm like, if he just didn't get out the car, if he would have just stayed in the car, he would be alive. Because Sylvie was alive. Sylvie survived. He died because he got out the car and touched the water. And then it like basically I thought that this was gonna be like a prequel in the sense of like it being just from Finn's perspective of like their childhood up to now. But no, it was 3 perspectives from Finn, Jack, and Autumn. I would have preferred it if it was just Finn and Jack. If it was just Finn and Jack, I kind of would have liked it I think a bit more. I mean I still gave it a 5-star, but I think Autumn's perspective, it didn't kill it. It just like I understand the purpose of like putting her perspective in there was assuming to talk about people's lives after they attempt and then they fail and how they live life after that. But I feel like I would have enjoyed it more if it was just Finn and Jack, because Finn and Jack's perspective were just so like heartbreaking. Because Finn, it was like, you know, you see the last 24 hours of his life up to his death, and then Jack's perspective is life after losing your best friend. And I was just sobbing because first of all, they were supposed to be going to the same college and being roommates. Imagine, because I was also thinking like, imagine if I was in high school and me and my high school best friend were planning on going to the same college and we were planning on being roommates, and then she died. And also I think what also was getting me was a little bit was that like, you know, because we live in a generation where mental health is a very serious situation, you know, things happen. I have been in a situation where I at one time almost was going to lose a really good friend of mine, and it's scary when you're in that, and it's very scary, and it's very like I cannot imagine me losing Like I can, like the thought of me losing any of my best friends, I cannot. Like I cannot. Those are my girls. Those are my like. Those are my. That's my chosen family. Those are my sisters, and I like the thought of even losing them, of any of them. I could not. Like I don't know what I would do with myself if that had happened. Like and I remember having that feeling when I was reading the book All the Bright Places, the part when spoiler, Finn dies, big shocker. The scene when I read the chapter when he dies, and I remember reading that book, and this is exactly when, oh my god, this was the time when one of my friends was very, very, very sad. And it was very scary because I was like, if I lose my friend, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I remember reading that chapter of when Finn died, and I texted my friend, and I was like, mind you, it's like 1 a.m. I'm texting my friend, please tell me you're alive. Please tell me you're alive. And I think I was in there. They texted, I'm fine. I was like, oh my god, thank God. Because you died, I would not know what to do with myself. So anyway, and that's why Jack's perspective, like, I feel like, I mean, Finn didn't die from, like, doing that, but, like, the concept of losing a best friend, I've come close to that in a sense, and it was very scary. And I think losing a best friend at such a young age as 18, I think when it happened, when it could have happened, I was 19, so, like, not that far off. So it's scary to lose a best friend at such a young age, yeah. So this book was sad, and it was really good. It was very emotional, and I enjoyed it a lot. Moving on. Now the next book, I feel like I am an apologist to this girl, to this woman. Like I accept zero hatred, zero. Oh, she's zero, because this author. One of my favorite authors, I feel like. 1, 2, she's the reason why I started to read romance again. It's Emily Henry Fenster. I love Emily Henry so much. Ever since Beach Read, I've been infatuated with her reading, with her writing. I've been infatuated. People Meet Me on Vacation. The fact that that's becoming a movie before Beach Read is astronomically upsetting. I cannot believe Beach Read is not becoming an adaptation first. And the fact that on Goodreads people Meet Me on Vacation more than Beach Read, don't even get me started. Whatever. Funny story. This book came out this year. I read it in a matter of days, and look at the annotations. I love this book, clearly. I did kind of say what that book was about. Anyway, funny story. This book, I don't even talk about the books. I just talk about what I liked about them. This book is basically about Daphne and Miles. Daphne and Miles both get broken up with by their exes, and their exes are dating. So Daphne had a fiance named Peter. They were going to get married, and then Peter breaks off the engagement so that he can marry his best friend Petra, and Petra broke up with her boyfriend Miles. So now Miles and Daphne move in together because they have no places to stay, because Peter was like, oh, this is my house, so Daphne, you have to go so Petra can move in. So Daphne and Miles have moved in together, and then they fall in love. The funny story about the relationship. And that's what this book is about. And I ate it up. The banter that Emily Henry writes and her characters is just like my dream romance life. I would love to have this type of banter in my physical life. And I think at one point I kind of did last year with one instance, and I was like, there's no way I'm living a romance banter moment right now. Like, this is crazy. Anyway, this book was absolutely really good, and 5 stars. I have no, like, I also, because of the fact that, like, I'm gonna say it, ADHD, I tend to forget what I remember the emotional attachment I have to these books, but like I read the books and then I can't thoroughly explain why I love these books so much, because if I read it a while ago, I read this in like April when it came out, so it's December. I don't remember that much to be in full details about each book, but I just remember that I love it so much. But obviously I loved it a lot because I annotated the crap out of it, so I can't go into full details about like why I love the book, because here's the thing. I'm an analyst. I will go into depth about why I like things and this and that, but I just because my object permanence is like, once I haven't seen it in a while, I'm just like, whatever. Anyway, so that's why I'm not going into full details. I'm kind of just like briefly in a way, but whatever. Next book is My Murder. This was an impulse buy, and I love it when I just go to Barnes & Noble thinking that I have self-control and I will just browse. And I look at the cover, I turn it over, read the blurb, and I buy it. And I read it in that moment. My Murder, I finished it in a matter of, I think, a few days because it was just such an infatuating book. I annotated and put no tabs. Interesting. Anyway, this was at first extremely disturbing when I was reading it because basically it's about this woman who this woman is a victim of a serial killer. And you're probably thinking, how was she a victim of a serial killer? Like, is this like an afterlife book? No, she's alive. Like, basically, she's a victim. She was killed by the serial killer, and the world that they live in created a program that would basically, in a sense, reincarnate. I don't want to say that because, lack of a better word, rebirth, I would say. Recreate. There we go. Recreate these women who were victims of a serial killer, and it's 5 women that were killed by a serial killer, and they get recreated to be exactly how they were before they died. But now they're like basically like a second version. I'm not gonna go into that. I was gonna talk about the movie Mickey that Robert Pattinson's in and how there's like doubles of him. I'm not gonna. It's not everyone's seen that trailer. Whatever. But basically, a person dies and they get recreated. Basically, and she's one of the people that gets recreated. She's one of 5 women that gets recreated, and it's basically talking about how she feels about life before she died and like how she feels about life after knowing that she was a victim of a serial killer, and how she could feel like every molecule of her body, and like how she's so aware of everything now because of life after her death. And it also just kind of like dabbles into the concept of like serial killers and people that like become obsessed with serial killers, and like the fans and people that love true crime, and how like genuinely disturbing it is when people like love true crime, because true crime is true crime. These things actually happen to people. Like, being obsessed with Criminal Minds is one thing, because Criminal Minds is a fictional thing. Like, being obsessed with like Criminal Minds, NCIS, Bones, like all those shows, those are fictional shows that are like kind of, I feel like, based off of true cases, but like whatever. Like being obsessed with like Law and Order, Criminal Minds, NCIS, and like those type of, that's one thing. But when you're obsessed with true crime, you're obsessed with terrible things that actually happen to real people. Like, it's it's one thing to be infatuated by like learning about it, but then to like obsess over it in the sense where it's like you're like stalking the victims of these people, and like you are obsessed with like the adaptations of it. It's like it gets really disturbing because like there's like quotes that she talks about how like she's aware of like whenever people see her, they see her as one of the victims, and like they either want to take her picture or they want to ask her invasive questions, and like just like how like uncomfortable in her own skin she feels, like because she could feel every atom and molecule of her existence, but also because she's so perceived by everyone else the entire time that she feels uncomfortable just existing. Like, it's very disturbing. And then it turns into a mystery because like we find out I kind of don't want to spoil this one. Like, we find out a very intriguing mystery, and then it goes from talking about true crime and serial killers to then a mystery about like who done it type thing, and that relieves it of the disturbance of the book to then being really interesting. And I gave it a 5 stars clearly. This is like, I would like love to like talk about like I don't know. Like, I can't find quotes, but I did annotate this book. I just didn't put tabs because I think this was the time when I didn't have tabs, or like I used to like use highlighters, like color. I color coordinate my annotations based off of like emotions. Like, if I find quotes that are funny, I will highlight them blue and then use blue tabs to say these are the funny quotes. Purple for sad quotes. So I would have a purple highlighter and then purple tabs. And then I started to run out of highlighters. So then I started to just highlight. I just used to underline them in pen, and then I would just color code the tabs. But then I used to try to color code the highlighting and the tabs, like make them connect. And then I decided to just stop doing that because I was running out of highlighters. So I would annotate with no tabs. I don't know why I did that, but whatever. This is a really good book. I highly recommend. It's My Murder by Katie Williams. So there you go. Okay, now we're gonna dabble into Abby Jimenez, Part of Your World. A lot of people do not like this book. They think it's mid compared to the other two, which I understand. I haven't read the third book just for summer. I'm gonna read that as my next read. Hopefully it will get me out of my reading slump. I actually really did enjoy this book because I feel like a lot of people think that Alexa's character has like privilege problems, and like people like don't care about privilege problems. And I, for one, relate to people that have privilege problems because I was always told that I had I was always constantly compared to other people that had worse lives than mine. So whenever I would have problems, my problems were always champagne problems. And because people had a worse life than mine, if I would try to explain my issues with society, they would like be mad at me and think I'm being an ungrateful spoiled brat, when in reality I was just having issues and no one wanted to hear them because my life was better than theirs. So I just had to suffer in silence. So I relate to that a lot. But the story between Alexis and Daniel was very cute, like the romance between them. And then Alexis' life became a little bit too interconnected with mine, in the sense that like she's like realizing that she is going through, like basically she's realizing something that like she's been dealing with her entire life and was never able to acknowledge it because of the people who were doing it to her. And when she's realizing it through therapy and she has to like heal from it, and she sees it still happening, but she can't like really heal from it because the people will deny that it happened, that it's happening, that it's a thing that's been happening. It like hurts. And like I will show you the annotations, heavily annotated. And when I tell you that it was a conversation that Alexis was having with certain people, and when I tell you I closed the book and was just sobbing because I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a direct copy and paste of my actual life. And there's a lot of books that I read this year that like I just felt like God himself was like, read that book, read that book, read that book. And when I would read those books, they were exact replicas of what I was going through in my personal life. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. And I think the time that I was reading this book, I was kind of realizing a lot of things about my personal life. And then for me to read a character that was going through kind of the same thing, oh my gosh, I was sobbing like a baby. So I love this book because of that personal relatable connection. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. And basically it's about Alexis. I don't even know how to describe this book. Alexis and Daniel. I don't feel like explaining this book. But basically Alexis is like, she's from this rich family, and she's basically a doctor, and she likes being an ER doctor, but her parents want her to be more. They want her to be this great thing, and she's like, I'm okay with just being an ER doctor. And her brother, they had this inheritance that they were going to get, but now that the brother was going to like, take over and achieve, but then the brother does something that takes him out the picture, and now she has no choice but to fill in for her brother when she doesn't want to. And basically it's just like the concept of living a life that you don't want but other people want for you is basically what she goes through. And it's just like she's living. There was a quote that she said, and I was like, oh, I think it was like talking about like misery and how like in order to make other people happy, she has to make herself miserable. Yo, when I read that line, I was like, chills down my spine. Like I remember reading that and I was like, oh, we're one and the same, girl. Oh, we're one and the same. Like, look at this one quote that I'm looking at. Like this. Oh, Abby Jimenez is just a wonderful writer. Like, look at this one quote. You know what's so dangerous about drowning? I said, looking up at him. It's silent. So unless someone's paying close attention to you, no one saves you. And this is when she's starting to go downhill. So, next book that I read, The Grandest Games. This is part of the Inheritance series, but like it's not though. It's definitely a spin-off from the Inheritance series, and it's basically the Inheritance series is about this girl who was poor, and then this random old man gives her an inheritance, and she has to stay at the house for a year to gain the inheritance. And then she meets these four brothers that are the grandsons to the old guy, and then she gets into their world. This is a spin-off of this because at the end of it all, spoiler, she gets the money and she does something with it, and basically this is just like seeing how the plan that she has with the money that she gained all this money, and she opted to give it away, and then she wanted to do like this fun thing with like all the games that she played with the brothers and all that stuff, to replicate that and to let other people play the games, and then they win money. So this is the first the first time of seeing the games, because this is the second year that it's happening, and it's called The Grandest Game. And it basically, this book is the first half of it, where it's like the teams, they go into teams, and then it's like the first half. So the next book, The Glorious Rivals, is like the second half of the games. So I read this book and I thought it was really nice. It was like a cute little fun, good palate cleanser. Nothing's annotated clearly, but I just read it and it was a good read. I enjoyed myself. Okay, the last 5-star book that I have on this section was actually I just finished reading this book a few days ago. My Last Innocent Year. This book, heavily annotated. I thoroughly enjoyed this book a lot, and I love when this was another impulse buy where I picked up the book, I looked at the cover, read the blurb, and I was like, I'm buying it. I bought this book and The Nightingale on the same day, because I was just like, when I went last week Thursday, I haven't been to a bookstore to purchase things in like a few months. I'm like sweating, it's so hot in my room, because the AC, I'm pretty sure it's like 90 degrees in my room. I'm not even kidding, because the heat be on, which is like grateful that I have heat, but I hope you didn't see my toes. That would be embarrassing. What was I saying? What was I saying? It's hot in my room, and I was talking about the dogs not being out. Oh yeah, like I'm grateful that I have heat in my apartment, but I be sweating. Anyway, so I was talking about this book. About this being an impulse buy. And I felt like I needed to read it immediately. And I was reading it and I was just flying through. There's just so many quotes that are in this book that I would love to talk about. And basically, it's like this girl that is her last year of her last year of college, and she basically is like, I'll read what the blurb says. It's 1998, and Isabel Rosen, the only daughter of a Lower East Side appetizing store owner, has always felt like an outsider at the prestigious Wilder College. As she begins her final semester, she believes she's found her place, until a non-consensual sexual encounter with a friend leaves her reeling. Enter R.H. Connolly, Isabel's writing professor, a man who makes her feel seen, beautiful, talented, the woman she longs to become. As the relationship deepens, Isabel discovers the dark truth of what it means to be an adult. Timely and wise, My Last Innocent Year is a portrait of a young woman learning to trust her voice and move toward independence while recognizing the grit and beauty of where she came from. This book is very interesting, and it's a debut novel by like some 40-year-old woman. Like, okay, go off, queen. Yeah, this book was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like there was just like so many like, I'm trying to think about like what like I said, I just finished reading this book and I'm already blanking on the book itself. I just really appreciated the aspects of like friendship, and like it was very interesting because it's like because it kind of talks about like, it's like a deeply resonant debut novel set against the backdrop of the Clinton Lewinsky scandal about one woman's final semester of college and her ill-advised affair with a married professor. So like, mind you, when I read the blurb, that's like the yellow like text that's on it. I didn't read that when I bought the book, so I thought that was low-key a spoiler, but like it's on the back of the book, so we know she's like, eventually she goes from like, she sleeps with a friend and she didn't like how she felt when they were like sleeping with each other. She felt extremely uncomfortable, and like she told her friend. The friend was like, "Oh my goodness, he argued," and then like that happened, and then like she dealt with that encounter to then deal with this. She's having an affair with a married professor, and it's just like so interesting. And it's like it made me just think about like people that get in these relationships when it's like, you know, that they're like, this is an affair, you are the side chick of this relationship. How are you like dealing with that? And like, why are you putting, like, why people put themselves in situations like that? And it was just very intriguing and interesting. Like, I like, there's just like so many like aspects of like just like interesting, like I'm like explaining this so poorly, but I thought it was interesting getting into the mind of a person that is in an affair, but then also like talking about the aspects of like, because a shocker, she's a writer and I love books about writers, and like her also talking about the death of her mother, because her mother died from like cancer, and like just like her going back and forth between her memories of her mother, and also like the concepts of like women and how they critique each other, how they like harshly critique each other at times, and just like the natural hatred that women have of each other, and like the commentary her mom would make about other women, and how she even critiques or just analyzes women as herself, you know. And it's just like little things like that, just like women existing and how they exist in the world and how they live their lives and how they discover themselves. And I think that was what gravitated. It's like in a way a coming of age novel, but not really, because it's her last semester. And you would think that like My Last Innocent Year, that like it's the last innocent year because of what happened with the friend, but I think it's her last innocent year because it's like two things happened to her: the thing that happened with her friend, but then her also voluntarily going into an affair with a married man, like, you know. And yeah, so it's just like that whole thing happening. It is actually a really good book. I feel like I would love to like do like probably a deeper dive into the book and like thoroughly talking about it, because I actually really did enjoy it. There's 2 6-star books and 1 7-star books, and each of these books, when I say, well, this one of the 6-star books, I wasn't crying as much. I'm gonna do that one first because these other 2 books I was sobbing so bad. Okay, this first 6-star book is Just Last Night by, I'm trying to look at, very McFarlane, because she has an Irish name and Irish names are different than what they're like spelled. So yeah, this is, first of all, heavily annotated, and this is about, I will read the blurb. Eve, Justin, Susie, and Ed have been friends since they were teenagers. Now in their 30s, the 4 are as close as ever. Thursday night bar trivia is scared. What? No. Thursday night bar trivia is sacred, and Eve is still secretly in love with Ed. Maybe she should have moved on by now, but she can't stop thinking about what could have been, and she knows Ed still thinks about it too. But then, in an instant, their lives are changed forever. In the aftermath, Eve's world is upended. As stunning secrets are revealed, she begins to wonder if she really knew her friends as well as she thought. And when someone from the past comes back into her life, Eve's future veers in a surprising new direction. They say every love story starts with a single moment. What if it was just last night? This book talks about friends and how you deal with grief, and also like romance coming up in the most surprising places. And I don't want to spoil this book. I think what I said was already enough. This book, I legit, like, first of all, the book is just so like good, and like there's just so many like beautiful quotes. Like it was just so like interesting. Like I think this one quote that, like, you know, that I marked as like a sad quote, and it was like, I've never seen mom and dad do that. And he said, that's because they don't like each other in the way that man and lady do. And well, from the mouths of babes. What? But the part when it was like, because basically what this, in this scene, the main character is talking to her best friend's brother, and they're talking about like kissing, and then she's like, oh, like I've never seen my parents do that before. And he's like, no, She's talking to her brother. She said, I said to my brother Kieran, I've never seen mom and dad do that. And he said, that's because they don't like each other in the way that men and lady do. Basically, what he's saying is like, you've never seen mom and dad show affection to each other because they don't like each other. And the concept of parents raising kids when they don't like each other as a couple that's a whole other topic. But just that, and when the brother said that's because they don't like each other, imagine being in a relationship with a person you don't like. And that's what a lot of parents do. They're with people they don't like, and they're raising kids with people they don't like. And here's the thing. When you are fighting with your spouse and you have children, they notice, they see, and sometimes they're around and you forget they're there. And it's very unsettling and also just really sad when you're a child realizing that your parents do not care about each other or they don't love each other. And like the parents don't know that you are realizing this because like you have conversations with your friends or like you just notice things about how they interact with each other and how you see other parents interact with each other, or even on TV. Like she's just talking about kissing. She's like, oh, I've never seen mom and dad kiss. And then he's like, yeah, because they don't like each other. Like that's sad. Like imagine, and this is siblings talking to each other. Like mom and dad don't like each other. That's why you don't see them giving affection, because they don't like each other. They can't stand each other. Like that's sad. But yeah, this book just touched on a lot of topics, and it was just like a really good, thorough. Like I need to do videos on books when I do this, when I heavily annotate them. I need to just do a book on them, because they speak such volume to like life and like the aspects of like existing and living. Okay, all right. I'm preparing myself mentally. Last two books. Now this book, I started to watch the TV show, and then halfway through the season I stopped because I was legit spiraling. I was spiraling because it was just too much for me mentally to deal with. And then I got the book because why not? So I got the book and I read the book. One Day by David Nichols, whatever his name is. I'm gonna start crying. This book broke. I'm legit crying. Oh my gosh, I didn't even say anything about the book. I'm already tearing up. This book broke me. Oh my, and you know, if you watched the show or read, you know exactly what part I'm talking about. Mind you, I stopped watching the show because I was like, I got up to episode 7. There's 14 episodes. I got up to episode 7 and just, I will say this. One genuine fear that I have is that like when people talk about like when family members die, I hate talking about my parents dying. It's something I cannot think about a world where one of my parents no longer exist. I simply refuse. I simply refuse to even entertain like that type of conversation. Like, you know how people say, oh, you gotta like talk about like what will your parents want when they're dead? Like, oh, like when I die, like I want this to happen. We haven't even had that conversation, and I refuse to have it because I do not want to imagine a world where I have to deal with living life without one of my parents existing. Like, because grief is a hard thing, and I already deal with issues of my own. To then on top of that deal with the grief of I had to grieve both my grandmothers when they both passed separately. They passed within 2 years apart, and they both passed within important years of my like school career. Like my first grandmother passed away the beginning of my senior year of high school. That messed me up a lot more than I realized it did, because after she died, I stopped caring about school. I still graduated, obviously, but like I gave up on school. I stopped caring. I was like, why am I working hard when nothing matters? And I was like sad, obviously. And then my other grandmother passed away towards the end of my first year of college, and I had to take finals like weeks later. And when my other grandmother died, I was like, oh wow, I have no grandparents. In the sense of the grandparents that I grew up around and that helped raise me. Like I had a grandfather, he's alive, but he wasn't in my life as a kid. He became in my life more realistically when I went to start going away to college, and he would help me drive there because we didn't have a car at the time. So that's when he started to become more actively in my life. But before then, it was just my two grandmothers. And when they both passed, I was like, when the first grandmother passed, I was devastated, obviously. But I was like, at least I have another grandmother. And then less than 2 years later, she died. And I was like, oh, now I have no grandmothers. I feel like I have no grandparents. And like having that realization hit me like a bag of bricks. And her funeral was legit one of the worst days of my life for other reasons too, which we've discussed in their bygone. But it's still one of the hardest days of my entire life. Like genuinely, that funeral was so hard for me. So the concept of family death is very hard. And when people like lose their parents, like they lose their mom, they lose their dad, and the grief that they have to endure living life without their parent, I cannot stomach. I can't stomach it. And in the show, that's what is portraying in the show. And just thinking about mind-boggling things like that. And mind you, I'm gonna go a little bit on a tangent. When I was like 6 or 7 years old, I had I don't want to say irrational, but like I would say irrational because there was no reason for me to think about this. I had a strong, extremely high fear of death, in the sense of I will legit be in my room randomly at night and think, where do we go when we die? Like, what happens to our bodies? What happens to our souls? Do we just cease to exist? How is it possible that like all these things happen, like, you know, the 18th century, the 17th century, and I wasn't even a blink of a thought. I wasn't existing at that time. But yet now when I'm existing, everything feels so real. And what happens to me? Like, what am I going to experience when I die? Like, am I gonna like go up to heaven? Like, am I gonna feel myself being in heaven? Like, am I gonna just become nothing? Like, am I gonna cease to exist? Like, that would happen in my head a few times a week. When I was like 7, I was a child when I was so terrified of the concept of death. I was so terrified. Genuine fear of dying. I had such a bad fear of dying. I was like, what? Because I didn't know what happened when we die. This was before my family became Christians. Then we became Christians, and then when I was 14, I was like, okay, I know what happens to our bodies when we die. We go to heaven, we go to hell. Then my new fear was, I had a fear that I wouldn't be a good enough Christian, I would end up in hell. That was my fear for a good like year or two. And I remember one time that I was at the nurse and I had to fill out the questionnaire, and they put, I don't know what question was on the questionnaire, but it was talking about like fears, and I put on the thing, I have a fear of dying and going to hell. And when I tell you that nurse looked at me and was like, she looked at that and she asked me that, and she was like, you have a fear of going to hell? The way how I felt so like, oh no, I'm talking about my problems. I legit was like, oh no, I think I just put that, but like I don't think that way anymore. Mind you, I put that answer 2 minutes ago. There was no way to actually unlock that quickly. But anyway, I like the fear I would say has dialed down, in the sense I don't have that anxious spiral of it happening anymore. However, the talk of people eventually dying in your life after they pass is something that I know exists, happens, and is very real. And that show was showing it when the guy's mom dies and his life after his mom died. And when the mom was like getting sick, and just like the aspect of him having to see his mother year by year slowly dying because she got sick. And I almost had, mind you, I'm watching this show minutes before I'm going to a wedding. My friend was visiting from Florida, and we were going to a wedding, and I'm watching this, and mind you, she wanted me to watch the show because she watched it and she said, I want you to watch it so I can talk about it with you. So I'm watching it, and I'm like, I'm legit going into a spiral. I'm legit about to have a mental breakdown, because what do you mean and it's like this like reminded me of my fear of death and people dying, and like legit having to deal with death and grief, and it was reminding me of my fears. So that I remember I was like, my mom was in the kitchen washing dishes, and I legit paused the episode we were watching and went to the kitchen, and I was like, you are not allowed to get sick. I rebuke that. I rebuke that in the name of, you are not getting sick. You have to be a young, healthy old person. I refuse. You better not get sick. You better be healthy until God takes you back. Like, you better be healthy. You cannot. I refuse. I rebuke you getting sick. You and that, you cannot get sick. And I was just, she was like, okay, I won't get sick. I'm like, no, I mean it. And I was like, guys, I legit, that was me low-key on the brink of breakdown because I'm like, the concept of like people watching their parents slowly wither away and taking care of a sick parent, watching your parents slowly wither away. And then it kind of hit me as a deeper bag of bricks because I'm here talking to my mom being like, you are not allowed to get sick, you have to be healthy for the rest of your life. And then it kind of hit me like, boom, that's exactly what my parents had to go through, watching their parents slowly get sick and wither away. And I was like, oh fuck. I was like, oh my gosh, like my fear, the fear that I'm terrified of going to that they had to go through. Like my parents both individually took care of their mothers until they died. And both my grandmothers had issues. They both had diabetes. They both had my grandmother, she had diabetes and other health issues. And then my grandmother, they had the different types of diabetes. Like one had type 1, one had type 2, and then they had health issues. They both had health issues. And just they took care of their mothers until they both passed. And I was like, oh, I cannot even imagine. And also the way how one of my grandmothers died was just very, actually extremely tragic. I'm not gonna get to it. That's not my story to tell because I just thinking about it, it's just dark. And that's why I stopped watching the show. So then I months later, I see the book in Barnes & Noble, thinking I'm going to just browse. I saw it, I picked it up, I instantly bought it. And then when I fell in love with the characters again, Dex and Emma. And also, before, when my best friend was watching the show, she said she watched the show and saw the character Emma and instantly thought of me. Because she was like, Emma reminds me a lot of you. So then I watched it and I was like, damn, you're right. You're right. Because her banter, the way how she is, the way how she's just this, the banter of Emma, if you watch the show, basically, that's how people see me, because that's low-key how I am. But Emma's a sweet girl, but then sometimes she comes up as the banter she has, she's always coming at people to be funny, but then also when she's hurt, and I'm like, ouch, all right, I get it. And then you fall in love with these characters, and then when if you haven't seen this, skip to a time code. When I read the line, and then Emma died, yo, I'm crying. The way how I screamed, no! And I just sat there sobbing for 20 minutes. Oh my gosh. Because what do you mean? What do you mean she dies? Because this girl finally, they've been at it for 15 years. Finally get together, finally get married. They're trying to have a baby. They move in, they looking for a house. And she goes and rides her bike and then she just freaking dies. And she was trying to be a writer for all these years, and she'd become successful. She's selling books, and then she dies. This author killed me because I saw myself so much in Emma, and then she just dies. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Oh, I wish I would have vlogged me reading this book because I was a mess. Clearly, I'm still just thinking about, I haven't finished the show. I just texted my friend and I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean she dies? What are you talking about? I was a mess. I was heartbroken. Heartbroken doesn't even begin to explain. Heartbroken. Oh my gosh, I was boo-hoo sobbing. I'm wiping in case I got stuff in my mouth. Boo-hoo sobbing over this book. And I just could not. 6 stars. Absolutely adored that book. But it was, I think that was the most depressing. Hello? One thing, it's another. I'll be back. So this is the last book that I'm talking about, and it is another Abby Jimenez book, and it is the second book in the standalone series after Part of Your World, and it is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I gave this book. This is not, I have annotations in it, but I just haven't tabbed them. But this book is heavily annotated. Just wait. This book is heavily annotated. I will read the blurb for this one because I think this is my favorite. This got the Book of the Year award in 2023. This got the Book of the Year award for me, personally. I think this was my favorite book of the entire year. Every time I look at this book, I'm like wanting to like hug this book because of the characters, specifically the character Jacob. Because this is the one book that I've seen the most accurate depiction and representation of people that deal with social anxiety. When I sit here and tell you, first of all, let me read the blurb like I said I was going to do. Dr. Brianna Ortiz. Dr. Brianna Ortiz's life is seriously flatlining. Her divorce is just about finalized. Her brother's running out of time to find a kidney donor. And that promotion she wants, that's probably going to the new man doctor who's already registering 80 freaking 7 on Brianna's pain in my A scale. But just when all systems are set to hate, Dr. Jacob Maddox completely flipped the game by sending Brianna a letter. And it's a really good letter, like the kind that proves that Jacob isn't actually Satan. Worse, he might be this fantastically funny and subversively likable guy who's terrible at first impressions, because suddenly he and Brie are exchanging letters, sharing lunch dates in her sob closet, and discussing the merits of freakishly tiny horses. But when Jacob decides to give Brianna the best gift imaginable, a kidney for her brother, she wonders just how she can resist this quietly sexy new doctor, especially when he calls in a favor she can't refuse. So this is what the book is about, and it kind of stands into a second trope. It doesn't say in the blurb what the trope is, so I won't say it. I will not be spoiling this book, but I will say there are a few things about this book that I just absolutely love, and one of the things is when the character Jacob just talks about his social anxiety and just how, like, when you need to have a safe person, a comfort person, and he says that Brianna became his comfort person, that like she just like noticed that like he is anxious in social settings, and instead of making him feel bad about it, she's like, oh, you just deal with social anxiety, okay, that's no problem, let me help you. And when you meet people that just they meet your needs, they see what you need and they understand how to help you, and like maybe they don't do it fully right, but they at least attempt to. And man, I was gonna go on this like philosophical like deep dive, and I just got interrupted. Oh my gosh. Safe person, and how like when Brianna just realizes how Jacob just needs help, and she just helps him. And I think that the only other person that did that for him was his mom. And what she would do is that she would do little things like, oh, like, you know, we're in this like social environment, and like, oh, like, you know, how about we'll stay here, and then until like you do something. Like basically like the mom will like do little games for him where it's like, okay, we can stay here, and then when you're ready to go, just either say this word or just like, you know, we'll do something and then we can go have fun after. Like she understood that he could not tolerate being in big social settings for long periods of time because he would get overwhelmed and he would feel anxious, this and that. And he's also experienced people that would see that about him and be annoyed that like he is anxious and that like he's just this quiet guy. He's like, oh, like why can't you be more like outgoing? Why do you always have to be like this is not? And like having people that just see him and understand him. And he was just such a like legit I saw myself so much in him. Like the way how, first of all, him writing a letter to express how he feels about people. Like the best way how I do my authentic like self is by in writing how I feel about people. Like I write my friends letters. Like my best friends, I basically write them love letters every Christmas, talking about how much I appreciate and adore them and how much I care about them. And like I said very important things about myself in letters and to them. And like I just like I felt so seen and heard. And it what made me cry about this book was the parts when like I was so attached to Jacob, in the sense of I was like, this is literally me in a cat, like this is literally me, male version of me to the T. And the parts where I knew at some point the relationship was gonna get rocky, and when it got rocky, I was like, oh my gosh, like I knew that if that happened to me, I would equally be just as heartbroken as him. And then also Brianna character, she started to get into this because her whole situation is that like she got cheated on. That's all I will say about her. That's the reason why she's getting divorced, because she found that her husband was cheating on her, and just the trauma that she experienced about being cheated on and not feeling like she's ever enough. And then like she goes down a road because her whole life is like kind of sad, and then she goes down, she kind of hits rock bottom at some point, and her aspect of her rock bottom and like him helping her with that, it was just so cute and adorable. But like they were just the parts where like the relationship looked like it's gonna end. It was just really heartbreaking because it's just like that's such a real authentic thing to happen. And then just like it was just mental health is, Abby Jimenez writes mental health so beautifully, it's actually crazy. And that's exactly why I was scared to read just for the summer, because I read this book and I was sobbing. And that book is about like legit like toxic, because part of your world is about basically what I was trying to talk about with Alexis realizes that she was emotionally abused by her parents, specifically by her father. And emotional abuse is just as bad as physical abuse, and sometimes it's worse because people can't see it. It's kind of like drowning. When she says if people aren't paying attention, it's silent. Emotional abuse is silent, because she was in a relationship that was emotionally abusive and she didn't realize it. And then when she realized, the reason why she was so used to it is because her parents were showing that, in the sense of like her partner was the same as her dad, and she was visually seeing how emotionally abusive her dad was to her mom, and how they're just in denial about the whole time. And like that was like so her talking about that was really deep, and then her talking about this, I'm just like, whoa, it was crazy. Hold on, I gotta change my battery's dying. I have to change it. Hold on 1 second. Okay, the angle might be a bit different. The stack of books, the minute I said my camera's dying, my battery died, my books fell, and I'm like, it's time to end this video. My stack of books is on, like, almost fell on my plate of breakfast, which I didn't finish because I was eating breakfast, and then I was like, let me film this video right now. I'm trying to... And also the stack of books wasn't in the frame before, but now it is. Deal with it. Anyway, this book was groundbreaking, monumental, and it's just the way how Abby Jimenez writes mental health and romance is just so beautiful. And then it also kind of shows that, like, you know, even when you go through your mental health struggles, you are still capable of being able to find a partner that like understands you, and that you're not that difficult. You have to find the right person to meet you. And it's just so like heartwarming, and it was just such a good, like, oh my gosh, like I remember this being a book that like I had for like a minute, and then I felt called to read it, and then I read it and I was like, oh whoa. Anyway, thoroughly enjoyed that book. Very, very good. And yeah, these are all my books. I would slide it over, but it might fall, and I don't feel like doing with that. But yeah, 20 books I read this year in the month of 2024. Not 2020. We're not doing COVID again. I'm gonna try to slide these 12 books. Of course, the ones that broke my heart the most are the ones that fall. This is not... I would pick them up, but like that would require me to put my phone down. Yeah, these are the books that I read that gave me 5 to 7 stars. And yeah, I'm really optimistic to next year. Here's the thing. If I read just for the summer, I could finish it today, and then that be another... I'm pretty sure it's gonna be another 5-star book read. But I think I would just... I don't know. because I literally had to pack today because I'm leaving tomorrow to go see my friend, to see my bestie for her birthday. I'm so excited to see her. I haven't seen her since like August, which hasn't been that, like, to be honest, like, I feel like long distance friendship is like, you would think that it's been like, oh, I haven't seen her in like 2 years. It's been like, I could go 2 months without seeing that girl, and I'm like, it's been way too long. I want my other best friend that like we finalized we're best friends this year. I saw her for like I didn't see her for 2 weeks, and we're both like, hey, that's way too long. Yeah, so yeah, these are all my reads, my favorite reads of the year. And I want to do another video about the weirdest books I've read this year, because I've read 2 of them this year. Weirdest books I've actually 3 of them. 3 of them I read. And I want to do more videos where I just end like books that I already read and just talk about like the quotes that I want to read, because I also started reading Intermezzo. Sally Rooney's new book. Listen, I refuse to buy the physical copy only because I have all her books. Normal People, Conversation with Friends, Beautiful World, Where Are You? All of them are in paperback. I refuse to get a hardcover when 3 out of the 4 books are paperback. I refuse to get I refuse to get a hardcover. So I'm waiting for it to get it in paperback. And on top of that, when I went to Barnes & Noble to get it, I was thinking about getting it. Why is the hardcover $30? I'm so sorry. I love Sally Rooney, but not like that. I'm waiting until it is a paperback, and then I will have the physical copy of it. But I read until like almost to the first part. Wow. The book so far is really good. I did enjoy it, but it's also a book that I cannot absorb in 2 seconds. So I have to you have to take your time reading that book. And I need a book that I can absorb, not a book that I have to take my time with reading. That's why I stopped reading it, but I do love that book. And I think next year I want to kind of focus on, my goals for 2025 when it comes to reading. My goal will be to read 24 books next year, to basically 2 books a month. Because I do think I can achieve that. Because I've read 20 this year, and if I would have pushed myself to read 4, if I would have just stopped stop reading books in the middle and just finish them, and then read, if I a lot of books I started this year and didn't finish. So a lot of those books every book that I started this year I do want to finish next year, and then read other books that I have. I also want to start reading more books of the authors that I've already read before, in a sense of like Fari McFarlane. I want to read all of her books, because Just Last Night was such a good book that I want to read all of her books. So I want to read all of her books. I want to read more authors that I have read. I mean, how many books? Well, I think before she was writing these books, she was writing other types of things. It was more YA stuff. I don't know if I want to read those, because I don't know if I would like them, but maybe I might in the future. But I want to read more the authors that I've only read 1 book of. Oh, I forgot to mention this book before. Another 5-star book that I've read that I don't have the physical copy of is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. The reason why I was going to talk about her, but I read Vicious by V.E. Schwab, 5-star. Here's the thing about that book. I have it on Kindle, and I listened to the audiobook. When I finished the book, I had to take a break before reading the second book, because I'm not gonna lie, that book was very, very dark, in the sense of it was very scary. Because not scary I had to jump, but it was just when you think about the character Victor, and his goal, and how he how he went by achieving his goal, and you just sit there and think about his character. He is very creepy and very scary. And so I'm like, what's the next book gonna be about? So I was scared to read the second book, because I was like, wait, he's kind of scary if you think about him. I was like, oh, Victor, wait, he's gonna, but then it's wait, he's gonna, it's like being attracted to a serial killer. Scary, terrifying. Anyway, I mean, Luigi is not a serial killer, but he is a killer that everyone's obsessed with it. They're like, oh my goodness, he's so hot. I will not say my thoughts on that, but I am with the people, I will say that. Anyway, but yeah, so I was very the concept of Victor as a character, and how passionate he was. His character is very he's not saying he's a good person. He's very much low-key villain, and you still root for him. But it's just okay, now what? You know what I mean? So I was scared to read the second book. I was like, I don't know what he's gonna do in the next book, and it's very scary. So yeah. But then I read what the second book is about. It's about the other character, Sydney. So I'm more like it's I think it's gonna be her perspective now. So I feel a little bit better about reading it. I will read that book next year. I was just scared to read it for a while because like I read Vicious and I read through it, but then I was like, okay, I need a little break because this book is a little like V.E. Schwab can write some good books. Like they're a little dark academia, heavy on the dark, heavy on dark. That book, I think legit, that's more fantasy than academia because The Invisible Life of Ida LaRue I read last year, absolutely monumentally stunning. And I'm surprised I gave it a 4 stars. I thought I would have given it 5. I think it's like a 4 stars, but like I liked it a lot. That's definitely a book I want to reread for sure. That's also low-key fantasy too. I think it is a fantasy book. So yeah, she writes very good like dark fantasy. But yeah, that's the last book I read. That's the 5-star. I forgot about the book. So because I said 12 books and I only said 11, so that was the 12th book. I just have it on the Kindle. I just don't have the physical copy yet because I want to just get both of them, but I just haven't bought both of them yet. But I will get them soon. But yeah, so I want to read more books from authors that I already started reading. I want to read 24 books. I want to finish all the books that I started this year. I want to finish them next year. Yeah, and I want to also make more book videos, like genuinely. And I would say I would make TikToks about it, but TikTok might be banned for real, y'all. January 19th, they might actually ban it, and it might actually be gone. So I was like, why would I start when it's gonna be gone? So YouTube Shorts it is, I guess, or just YouTube videos. I'd rather just do YouTube videos. But yeah, I want to do more book videos. On like whenever I heavily annotate a book and I just want to talk about it, I feel like I should just like the next day I get the chance to just film talking about the book. Because I really love talking about books. Like I would be a professor just to talk about books, like genuinely. Yeah, so this is my 5 to 7-star reads of 2024. I love reading, and I'm so glad that like 3 years ago I decided to start, like it was in my senior year of college, and I was like, let me start reading again because I used to love reading, and writers need to read, and I loved reading as a child, and then school ruined it for me, so I want to love reading again, and I just started reading, and I absolutely fell in love with reading again. And I remember the first book that I read to start reading again, I read it in like a day, and I was like, okay, I'm back into reading. It doesn't take long. You can never, like, I feel the people that are readers as a kid, they will always find their way back to it. And I did 3 years ago, and I've been happy ever since. Well, for the most part, I've been thoroughly enjoying my reading journey, and I love reading. I would love to be one of those people that could read like 100 books in a year. I admire that. The reason why they're able to do it is because they have the time. They don't have 9 to 5s. They also, I think, well, some of them don't have ADHD, so that's another thing. Actually, maybe they do. I don't know. But yeah, I do love reading, and I would love to my whole entire life I've been aspiring to be an author. I no longer say I aspire to be a writer because I am a writer. I aspire to be an author, a successful author that just books, like best-selling books, like national best-selling books. The books become good. They become movie adaptations, and I write the movie adaptation script because I also love movies and TV shows, and I want to write the adaptation. I would love to adapt my books into movies if I write them or I co-write them. I want to say and how it adapts. I don't care how much money they pay me. I want to be able to be in control of how, because adaptations can be a hit or a miss, and The Goldfinch is a good example of that because Donna Tartt wrote Goldfinch, monumental book, and then it became a movie, and she hated the movie so much that she refuses to first of all, she almost fired her agent because of it, and then she vowed to never let another one of her books become an adaptation again. It's just like these people just know how to irritate me. I'm leaving because if I get interrupted one more time, I'm gonna legit have a breakdown. I don't know what I was talking about. My books fell again. Yeah, so I think I was talking about my goals for next year, reading wise. But yeah, I love reading. Will always love reading. I would be like the freaking people that are like 97 years old, reading a book, knitting and reading. I do that now. Well, I don't knit. I crochet. But yeah, so thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's a long one because I kept being interrupted and because I love to yap. Thank you guys for watching. If you did, please, I can't do my outro. thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please smash the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. My social medias will be on the screen. You can see my TikTok, Instagram, my threads, and also I have a podcast, Random Chats with Anna. It's a podcast, Instagram, and all that jazz. I'm gonna try to figure out my outros for the next year. 2024 is ending. This is 27th, and I don't know when I'm gonna post this video. Hopefully within the next day or two. And yeah, 2024 was a rough year. So it was a learning year. Very much learn. I learned a lot. Well, I hope I'm gonna make next year better in the sense of I will prioritize my creativity. I was not able to write a single piece. I didn't write at all this year besides my journal entries, and I barely even did that. But I haven't been able to work on writing at all this year because I didn't have the time, and that makes me actually very sad. So next year I will focus on my writing a lot more. I will prioritize it because that's what my career is. I went to school to be a writer, to be an author, and I did not put myself in all this debt to not be an author. So I need to make it happen next year, and that's my goal. I don't think I'm gonna make another 2024 recap. I probably won't. But yeah, I'm gonna just go. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next year. Bye.